Good morning. Today we are again together for the unit of environment and sustainable management. This is Meltem Yilmaz, the lecturer. I have a graduation of biology degree, an undergraduate, and a master's degree of environmental science in forestry and engineering. So today I am going to share my screen with you and start the session on that. Okay. So today we will work out the fundamentals of sustainability to understand the principles and perspectives of business ethics and its use in discussions regarding climate change and sustainability. So we will introduce the business ethics about sustainable management. Then we will talk about moral principles, learn, utilitarianism, Kantism, libertinism, expectancy theory, equity theory. So we will talk about the impact of the culture's ethical behavior, reputational risk, impact of unethical behavior on share price and product and label. So we will talk about ethical code of conduct, and share some examples about it. So the principles and perspectives of business ethics and its use in discussions regarding climate change and sustainability. So when we look at the sustainable agenda, it's obvious that choices business make are not just technical or financial, they are also ethical. Business ethics provides the moral framework that helps companies decide how they should behave when their operations affect people, communities, and the planet. As climate change and environmental degradation worsen, ethical reasoning becomes central to how business justify their actions, set priorities, and respond to shareholder expectations. So business ethics needs to ask the following questions for the description of their priorities. What responsibilities do companies have beyond profit? So it is not only profit, what a business is having as a vision. How should they treat workers, customers, and communities? So how is their relationship between these three groups? What obligations do they have to protect the environment for future generations? So are they responsible, or are they taking responsive actions again for the future generations as well? Do they have plans for that? How should they balance short-term financial gains with long-term sustainability? So they should show the communities and the customers as well, and their workers, employees, if they balance the financial gains with their long-term sustainable strategies. So these questions matter because business are powerful actors. Their decisions on production, sourcing, energy use, waste, pricing, and innovation shapes global supply chains, and directly influence climate change and biodiversity. Ethical perspectives help businesses understand the consequences of their action and decide what doing the right thing looks like in practice. In this context today, we are trying to understand the change and sustainability in climate. Business ethics is used to evaluate whether a company's behavior is fair, responsible, and aligned with wider societal goals. It supports transparency, accountability, and honest reporting. It challenges greenwashing, exploitation, and practices that shifts environmental costs onto vulnerable communities. It also helps organizations justify strong internal policies such as reducing emission, paying fair wages, sourcing responsibly, and investing in low carbon innovation. So today we are trying to explore and will learn the ethical theories, principles, and perspective that guide responsible business behaviors. It looks at how concepts such as duty, fairness, justice, stakeholder responsibility, and long term thinking shape corporate decision making. It also explains why ethical considerations are essential for building trust, reducing risks, and ensuring that sustainability commitments are genuine rather than superficial. So, today we will also talk about professional behaviors. So, that means how business professionals are thinking about and using ethical behavior. So, professionals rely on a range of ethical guidance to make responsible decisions, especially when their work affects people, the environment, and future generations. These sources help shape behavior, set expectations, and support actions that contribute to sustainability, and ethical guidance comes from formal frameworks, organizational standards, professional bodies, and personal values, and each plays a role in daily decision making. So it is a cooperational network that we are talking about for building ethical principles. So, professional codes of ethics. Many professions, accounting, management, engineering, human resources, marketing, and finance, have formal codes for ethics. These usually emphasize integrity, fairness, transparency, respect for stakeholders, and responsible decision making, such as CMI, ECA codes highly integrity, objectives, and public interest. So CIPD HR stress fairness, respects, and responsibilities to employees and society. So engineering bodies require professionals to avoid harm, protect safety, and consider environmental impact. These codes guide everyday professional behavior and reinforce that sustainability is part of ethical practice. So, values and policies that organizations have. Most organizations now have internal frameworks that support sustainability, such as environmental policies, equality, sourcing, diversity and including policies, responsible sourcing and procurement standards, codes of conduct, health and safety standards, sustainability strategies, and net zero commitments. So these policies shape decision about suppliers, customers, materials, energy use, waste management, and how employees and committees are treated. They act as practical day-to-day ethical tools. So international frameworks and principles are also assets and standards for ethical priorities. A number of global standards offer clear ethical direction on sustainability. So UN Sustainable Goals, Development Goals, UN Global Compact, Human Rights, Labor Standards, Environment and Anti-Corruption. OECD Guidelines for Multinational Enterprises. The ISO standards, especially ISO 14001, Environmental Management, and ISO 26000, Social Responsibility. Professionals use these frameworks as benchmarks for responsible behavior, ethical risk management, and long-term sustainability planning. Legislation and regulatory standards that we need to show how we use ethical standards. Ethical practice is shaped by legal requirements that protect people and the environment, such as environmental protection laws, carbon reporting and emission regulations, labor laws and human rights standards, health and safety legislation, waste and recycling regulations, anti-bribery and ethical trading laws. Following the law is the minimum requirement, but it also reinforces ethical behavior by setting clear boundaries. Stakeholder expectations. So it is not up to the company, the business as well. It also shows ethics for stakeholders, and they have expectations. Customers, employees, investors, communities, and suppliers increasingly expect ethical behavior. This includes transparency, fair treatment, reduced environmental impact, and accountability. Listening to these stakeholders provides real time ethical guidance and helps professionals make decisions that align with wider social values. So, the impact on stakeholders and the expectations of stakeholders will also shape the ethical standards of a business. So, ethical theories and personal values, how they match, how they integrate each other. Daily practices is also influenced by moral principles such as utilitarianism. It is maximizing overall goods. Duty-based ethics, doing what is right regardless of outcomes. Virtue ethics, acting with honesty, fairness, and integrity. Justice and fairness, ensuring equity and avoiding exploitation. These help professionals navigate situations where rules are or policies might not give a clear answer. So it is important for the professionals to be capable and have the training and education about sustainable ethical theories and values to put it on the board with the standards and morals. So industry best practices and voluntary standards. Many sectors published sustainability guidelines. So this is an important improvement for the sectoral behaviors. So such as green building standards. So there are different kind of like BREEAM and LEED. Responsible investment principles, ethical supply chain certifications, FCC, MCC, ethical supply chain certificates, carbon reduction standards, and science-based targets. So these tools help professionals make ethical choices that reduce harm and promote sustainable outcomes. So when we summarize it in conclusion, we may say that ethical guidance comes from a combination of professional codes, organizational policies, global frameworks, legislations, stakeholder expectations, and personal values. These sources provide the foundation for making responsible decisions every day. So, when used consistently, they help professionals promote sustainability, avoid harm, and support long term well being for people, communities, and the environment. So, describing the meaning of an ethical culture of an organization and the implications of unethical behavior. An unethical culture is an organization, so is the shared set of values. So, values, beliefs, behaviors, and expectations that guide how people act, work, and make decisions. It goes beyond having a code of conduct on paper. So it's about the daily reality of how leaders behave, how employees treat each other, how decisions are made, and how the organization may manage its responsibilities towards customers, suppliers, communities, and the environment. An ethical culture shapes the tone from the top and becomes the foundation for trust, accountability, and responsible business practices. An ethical culture exists when employees feel able to speak, leaders act consistently with the organization's stated values, and decisions are based on fairness, honesty, and respect for all stakeholders. It also means that sustainability, transparency, and long term thinking are embedded in operations rather than treated as optional extras. When an organization has a strong ethical culture, people understand the difference between what they can do and what they should do, and they choose the responsibility option even when no one is watching. So, this is the culture of the organization as well during the roadmap and the life cycle. So, the key features of ethical culture: leaders model ethical behavior and make integrity visible. Employees are encouraged to raise concern without fear. Policies and processes reflect fairness, equality, and respect. Sustainability and social responsibility are built into strategy. Decision making considers long term consequences, not just profit. Misconduct is dealt with consistently and transparency. An ethical culture encourages cooperation, reduces risks, and supports positive reputation. It strengthens relationships with customers, partners, regulators, and investors, all of whom expect responsible behaviors. So it is not only profit that a business is focusing on, it is the culture and the cultural behavior of the organization in a whole structure. Therefore, ethics is one of the important assets that needs to be taken as a behavioral concept at all. So, of course, when we talk about ethics, ethical behaviors, we will also need to understand how to deal with unethical behavior. So, we will talk about implications as well. Unethical behaviors damage organizations in multiple ways. The first impact is reputational. When companies are involved in scandals, whether it's fraud, greenwashing, labor exploitation, or environmental harm, trusts collapses quickly. Customers walk away, employees lose pride in the organization, and communities become suspicious. Restoring a damaged reputation is time consuming, expensive, and sometimes impossible. So, to invest for ethical regulations is an investment. To avoid this investment and neglect it can turn into very um, big and non renewable solutions. So, this shows that investing to ethics needs to be in a planned perspective so that it can avoid any kind of reputations. And it is also time consuming. So there are also financial consequences. Unethical practices can lead to fines, lawsuits, regulatory penalties, and compensation claims. Misconduct in areas like emission reporting, product safety, or supply chain labor standards often triggers major financial losses. Investors may withdraw funding if they believe the company is high risk or dishonest. Banks may raise lending costs and insurers may increase premiums. So it is a kind of consideration that, yes, when we do that, when we do, when we neglect ethical standards in our companies, we can lose lots of impact as well. So therefore, it is important to use the ethical standards and invest to it. Unethical behavior also creates internal risks. It encourages toxic culture, where employees feel pressure to cut corners or hide mistakes. Morals drops, staff turnover rises, and productivity declines. When people see wrongdoing being ignored or rewarded, they lose trust in leadership and stop caring about quality and responsibility. So, finally, unethical behavior carries long term strategic risks. Companies that ignore sustainability, misuse resources, or exploit stakeholders create future liabilities. For example, ignoring environmental obligations can lead to cleanup costs, supply chain disruptions, or regulatory crackdowns. Unethical companies struggle to innovate because the culture doesn't support openness or accountability. Finally, an ethical culture is the backbone of responsible and sustainable business. Practice it guides behavior, shapes decision making, and builds trust on an ethical standard as well. When organizations fail to maintain ethical standards, the consequences are serious: financial damage, legal trouble, loss of reputation, employee disengagement, and long term strategic decline. Embedding ethics into everyday practice isn't optional, it's essential for stability, credibility, and sustainable success. So, sustainability is is supportive for the business by ethical standards as well. So it is not a loss of money, it is an investment for the future of the company as well. So in the part third, we and ethics, we will critically evaluate the importance of embedding business ethics to achieve sustainability. So ethics and sustainability are interrelated. Neither ethics nor sustainability can be manageable and achievable being apart from one of them. So, what do we mean with that? Embedding business ethics is essential for achieving sustainability because it determines how organizations behave, how decisions are made, and whether sustainability commitments are genuine or simply marketing. Sustainability requires long term thinking, accountability, and fairness. These are ethical principles or not just operational ones. Without an ethical foundation, sustainability strategies tend to collapse into greenwashing, short term profit, cheesing, or superficial gestures that fail to deliver real change. At its core, sustainability asks businesses to balance environmental, social, and economic responsibilities. Ethical reasoning is what helps leaders navigate that balance. It forces organizations to consider not only what is legal or profitable, but what is right. Ethics pushes companies to think about their impact on future generations, vulnerable communities, ecosystems, and global resources. This kind of thinking is the opposite of short termism, which is one of the main drivers of environmental degradations. So, ethics builds also credibility and trust. This is very, very considered for a business which is starting and growing. Sustainability relies heavily on trust from customers, investors, regulators, and employees. Ethical organizations are transparent, honest, and consistent, which means stakeholders believe their sustainability claims. Without embedded ethics, companies are more likely to exaggerate achievements, hide negative impacts, or manipulate data. When this is exposed, reputations collapse and the entire sustainability agenda becomes meaningless. Trust is a strategic asset, and ethics is what protects it. So, ethics is a protection of trust as well. So, ethics also reduce long-term risks because of the standardization of the process, the regulations, and the management. Unethical behavior leads to regulatory penalties, reputational damage, supply chain failures, and financial loss. When organizations embed ethics into decision making, they avoid these risks. They are more likely to comply with environmental law, respect labor standards, reduce pollution, and prevent social harm, decrease energy costs as well. This supports long term resilience and protects the organization from the escalating risk linked to climate change, resource scarcity, and social inequality. Ethical behavior isn't just moral, it's a form of risk management. Many sustainability failures come from companies treating sustainability as a branding exercise instead of a genuine commitment. Ethical cultures challenge this. They push leaders to back sustainability with investment, measurable targets, and long term strategies rather than slogans. So, ethics drives real sustainability, not symbolic actions. So, ethics encourage accountability. Organizations measures their carbon footprint honestly, disclose supply chain risks, and take responsibility for negative impacts. This ensures sustainability isn't decorative but operational. So, when we conclude this part, embedding business ethics is not optional. It is an organization wants to if an organization wants to achieve sustainability, ethics needs to be the standard, one of the standard of the organization. Ethics provide disciplines, accountability, and integrity needed to turn sustainability commitments into real action. It protects reputation, reduces risks, drives innovation, and strengthens long term resilience. When ethics is missing, sustainability becomes empty and rhetoric, an empty rhetoric. When ethics is embedded, sustainability becomes part of how the organization thinks, behaves, and competes. Ethical cultures create the conditions where sustainability can genuinely succeed. So this in this session we have talked about the ethic standards, embedding ethics, and we have talked about unethical behaviors and described the meaning of ethical culture in an organization, the implications of unethical behavior, and we have talked about the understanding and the principles of and perspectives of business ethics and its use in discussions regarding climate change and sustainability. So it is ethics standards need to be integrated into the sustainable strategy as well so that they can be achievable, manageable, and can be a part of the culture of the business. Therefore, when we talk about ethics and the misuse and the impact of it, we need to understand that without ethical standards, sustainability management would be also difficult to get the impact for the company as well. And the company would lose its branding opportunities for the future and lose time as well. Therefore, today, what we talked about was how climate change and sustainability management is supportive with ethical standards in a company. So I will now show the final part of it and end it up. Let's see. So thank you for today. This was the unit session 5 for ethical behaviors of companies in sustainable management.